Hello and thank you for purchasing Stacked. This is an effect where you can take a deck of cards and visually turn it right in front of your spectator's eyes into a full stack of cash. So let's take a look at what you receive in your Stack package. Once you get your pack, you're going to open it and you will see that you have what appears to be a stack of bills. Upon closer examination, you'll notice that they are not real money. Right in the middle, you will see that it says for magic trick use, just like that, right in the middle of each bill, so you don't confuse them and actually spend them. One of the main reasons we have this writing in the middle of each bill saying for magic trick use is because we don't want you getting pulled over by cops, or if you're performing in front of cops, you don't want to have counterfeit money, right? Because this isn't real money. So just in case, to be 100% safe, we've added this little writing on there just so that you know that there's nothing going to happen to you. It's 100% safe to use this. Also, just so you're aware, if you actually read, it doesn't really say the United States of America. For legal reasons, we also changed instead of CA to OA, and then we're safe in that aspect. So without any further ado, let's take a look now at how your stack gimmick actually works. Your stack gimmick is actually using a very common principle in magic called the Svengali principle, right? And what that is if you happen to flick the money down, and I'll show you everything in detail later, if you just flick down like this on your stack of money, it will appear as if there are cards. The reason why that's happening, if you take a closer look at your bills, you will notice that they are layers. So you have a paper bill on top, and then underneath you have what appears to be a card. Also, beneath the bill, you have what looks like the back of playing cards. And it will all make sense to you once I show you how this whole trick works. But for now, that's all you need to know. Also, notice that the paper part of the bill, because you have a flimsy part and then you have a harder part. The harder part is the playing card, the flimsy part is going to be the bill, okay? Now, the flimsy or the bill part is actually cut slightly smaller for us to take advantage of the Svengali principle. What that means is your thumb cannot reach the paper pieces because they're shorter than the long card piece. That's why when we flick through, we only see cards. Now, if we were to turn this over and flick through like that, you would only see money because now we're only showing the long pieces while hiding the smaller pieces underneath. This is incredibly easy to do. Once you get your pack in your hands, it will make absolute sense. So let's take a look at what you do first. You will notice that your stack of bill will have a $100 bill on top. Upon closer examination, you will notice that on the right side of the bill, if you're reading the bill, you will see that there's a little raised circle. What that is actually a magnet, okay? So this is a flap that goes across the card just like this, okay? Now, if we were to hold the deck here and angle it so that you can only see this, this packet, now you have the illusion that you're holding a deck of cards in your hand, okay? This is the very basic handling, and then we will go into little tips and little subtleties that will make the effect that much stronger. So for now, you have your stack, okay? You are going to flip that bill backwards. You will have this here, and you will have your 5 of clubs right in front. Now the 5 of clubs is going to be facing away from you, and the back of the card is going to be facing towards you. You will then take your dominant hand, in whichever hand you normally grab cards, and you're going to reverse the grip. So if you normally grab cards like this in dealer grip, you're going to grab that and turn it over completely so that you're gripping the cards from the top. So your hand is going to be palm down, the deck is going to be face up, just like this. Okay? Now, your angles are actually pretty good. All you want to do is make sure that this edge of the deck is facing the spectator's eyebrows or eyes, and that's going to hide this little portion back there. So as long as you have this facing to their eye level, they will not see the back of this bill, of your stack of bills, okay? So once you're here, now all you have to do, you also want to be careful not to expose this red flap card, okay? So you don't want to be like this and then they'll see that. That looks a little bit fishy. You want to make sure you have the deck forward ahead. Here's why. If you grab a normal deck of cards, you wouldn't grab it like this, you would grab it over here. So you just mimic how you would normally hold a deck. If you normally do this, you grab it, you figure out how you're holding it, put that aside, grab your gimmick, and then it should be held exactly the same. That way when you hold this and you hold a normal deck of cards, they both look the same. Now we're going to start flicking the cards up like this. There's a little thing you could do here as you're flicking. If you actually, when you start this way, angled down, and then as you flick, you slowly angle the cards up towards them. And the reason we're doing this is because we're also flashing the back design and the faces of the cards to the spectators so that they really feel like this is a deck of cards. Okay, so we're here, we're showing everything. Now, the second we get to this point, we're gonna just let go as we turn our hand forward. I mean, from palm down to palm up. Now, this little jerky motion that I'm doing here will create the illusion that the cards snapped and changed visually into the bills. Now, if you see this bend here, it creates this shape. It's creating this shape. When we let go, we retain that shape in the same location to maintain that visual transformation from a deck of cards to money. Now, the second this is done, in a fluid motion, we immediately start spreading the bills, okay? So we're going to start spreading the bills to show that they have changed. Now, in this action, so in this gesture of showing the bills, what we're really doing behind is getting our hands underneath, or our fingers underneath that flap. Okay? So as we spread, we're getting our hand underneath that flap. Now, your angles here are very important, so you want to try this in front of your mirror. You do not want to flash that or turn it this way. They might see this. So just remember this edge here, as long as you have it pointed towards their eye level, they will never see the flap underneath. It goes without saying, the more you spread the bills, the more you're going to be able to hide that. But this, you're just going to be in this position for a split second as you gesture. You're then going to turn the hand that's holding the spread of the bills, the fan of the bills, you're going to turn it palm down, right? So we're going from palm up to palm down. That's what you're doing. Now, in this motion, you're going to be using your middle finger, okay? So as you're turning, I will do exposed view now. As you're turning, your middle finger is going to close the gimmick. Now, as you've probably already noticed, we have a magnet there and a magnet on that bill and a magnet on that card. So all it takes is a little bit of help and it'll automatically lock for you, okay? Now you want to practice this to make sure that when you turn it over, by the time you get here, it's already closed. You don't want to prematurely show that you're closing it, okay? So just make sure that when you turn it over, it's already closed before you turn it over. Now let's take a look at the whole entire sequence from an exposed view, from the back. So let's take a look at that now. We're going to, once again, get the gimmick ready. This is done obviously outside of the audience. They will never see you do this. This is what you do in secret. So we have our stack of gimmick like this. We have it open. We have our dominant hand, the hand you normally hold your cards, palm down, and you're gripping the deck just like this. We're going to start flickering. Again, the deck is angled slightly down, and as you progress, you slowly start to angle the cards up so that they can start to see the back design of those cards. It would look something like this, like that. The second we get to the end of our stack, we're going to do a magical move or kind of something unexpected to give it, how do I explain it? Almost like a magical moment. So as we're coming here, they just see cards, and then boom, they weren't expecting this jerky motion, and that jerky motion caused the cards to transform into the bills. Okay? Also, the jerky motion is there so that they don't see you just turn the whole stack or your gimmick over, right? So once again, we flick through. Now we're going to start spreading the cards. And as we do that, look what my pinky's doing down there. I'm just making sure that this is open. Once I know that that's open, I just put my fingers on the non-dominant hand. I put them inside of that opening there, in between the stack and our flap card there, okay? And I continue to spread. Now, once you turn the stack over, you're going to use your, let's do it this way. Once you turn the stack over, you're going to use either your index finger or your middle finger to close the flap in the same motion as you turn over the bills to show the other side. And it's as easy as that. The second you're here and you show the other side, you can either put the stack into the hand in that same way and you start spreading, and then you can show both sides as you spread. So there's many different ways that you can go about it. It's really up to you how you want to display your money. So going from this here, we show a gesture. You can just point to the money and look, now it's all money. We close it. From here, you can keep spreading and you can show, or you closed it, you can, because you already turned it over, you can just put it in your hand, turned over already, and continue to spread. Now, if you do this, the good thing about this is that all of your Svengali principle will be facing towards you. So if you're a little worried, which you should never be, that they will see the little edges right here, you have nothing to worry about if you do it this way because they will be facing you at all times. So the front of the bills are very, you can show them really cleanly and beautifully this way, just like that. You may have noticed from performing and me explaining it that the more you do the flick through, and I will teach you how to do this much better in a later section, when you do that, sometimes once you do your change, you might get a little flash of those cards there because you've been doing it over and over again. So there's a few things you can do in order to combat this. The first one is, and this is the easiest, is right after you perform, because you are bending the cards this way, the cards will naturally bend. So all you gotta do is do the same thing you did, but with the gimmick the other way, and that's going to unbend the cards, right? So you can do this a few times, and then that should help you bend the cards back so that they do not split as much. Now, if you want the foolproof way of doing this, so you do your bend, your riffle through, you do your change, and you start showing. Now here I have no pressure on the gimmick. So then this is opened. But if I apply a little pressure with this part of my index finger and the part of my palm there and upwards, and then with my thumb down, so I just create this reverse force, just like this, that's going to cause the bills and the cards to flush with each other. So as you're spreading, just make sure you put pressure down on your thumb and you put pressure upwards with your index and the palm of your hand, and that's going to get the bills to become flush with the cards. And then you can do your move with your middle finger or your index finger, just like that, okay? So all you have to keep in mind, if you're a little bit afraid of this kind of opening a little bit, maybe because you've been flicking through a lot, you can either unbend it or you can just apply a little pressure this way. Another thing, if you want to be even more sure, is as you turn, if you phase the bills away from your audience with the pretext that you want to show them, right? Because remember, you're going to show them here. Now, by doing that, you're using your gestures and your movements to hide that part that might show up just a little bit, just in case you're afraid. Another thing that will also help is it's here. So with your gesture, if you gesture up here, their eyes will go up there. They will never go here. So just by gesturing here, their eyes will come up, and immediately you turn, and by the time you turn, it's already game over because all of the gimmick is now facing away from the audience. So you can just grab the gimmicks there, and you will never, ever, ever flash like this. Now that you have an idea of how the trick works, you're probably wondering, how do I get into the trick? Because it is a weird position to be in. It's actually very, very simple, and later on in the download, we will go through different ways that you can get in and out of this. But for now, let's just go with the simplest method out there that you can do. So you want to use the hand exactly as if you're going to perform it. So pretend you're going to perform the trick. You're going to take that hand exactly how it is, and you're going to bring it to your back pocket and just place the gimmick in your back pocket exactly how you had it. Just like that. So that means now anytime you want to perform this, all you have to do is go into your back pocket, grip it in the same way, and you'll come out ready to perform. Okay? And that's the easiest way to get into stacked. Now, let's say you're not going to perform this in person and you're going to do this on social media. Super simple, because now you don't even have to do that. Now you can just start performing like this. We will go over different ways of how you can start performing this, either in person or social media, and we'll even show you how you can switch this with your normal deck. So make sure you watch the rest of the instructions. Let's take a look now at another routine that you can do with your stacked gimmick. Imagine you take any pack of cards from its box and you riffle through and have the spectator think of one they see. Did you see one? You're not thinking of the 10 of spades, are you? It's actually a little bit odd that you're thinking of that card, because I never had any cards to begin with. In fact, all I had was this big, fat stack of cash. For this next effect, you will need a regular card box, okay? You will not need the cards. Don't throw them out because you can still use them. So don't throw them out. You need a card box. Now, the card box will look pretty normal for the most part, but it's gimmicked in a very specific way to make it seem like your gimmick came from inside that box. So all that is a box that has been cut this flap. Now, the flap that has been cut is the same flap that has the flap that closes the cards, okay? So if you were to look at your card case, you're gonna have the card case and you're gonna have the flap that opens and closes. You wanna have that facing up. And all you're gonna do is very carefully make sure you're over the age of 18. If not, go talk to your parents, have them do it for you. But you're very carefully gonna take an X-Acto knife and you're going to start off by cutting the top part just across like this. So you're gonna put it in, it's gonna go through the bottom. Once you have done that, you will then cut along the side, and you want to stop, if you're using bicycle, right almost where that where the B meets, right there on that stick, almost to that point. That's where you want to do the cut. And of course, you want to do the cut the same length on the other side. Now, it does help if you put, because as you can see right there, we just have a very little piece of cardboard that's attached together. You can take a thin piece of tape and just place it right along that side. And what that tape will do is not let this flap here continue to rip or get smaller and smaller, and eventually then your card case will rip. So you want to do that on this side, and you want to do that on the other side. When you have finished, you should have what looks like a deck shell with a little piece of card case that's right on top. And the reason we're doing this is so that when you take your gimmick, so this is really simple. You have your gimmick closed, we'll open it so that you have your 5 of clubs facing like this, away from you. You're then going to take the box, turn it upside down, just like this, and you're going to place the stack with the 5 facing up. You want that 5 to be facing the same direction as the half moon cutout. So once you know that you have the right orientation, go ahead, push it in. When you push it in, you want to be careful there, right at that edge where we made that cut. You don't want to push hard and then you'll rip it. So you just want to gently work it in so that we put the gimmick inside of that case like that. So now the gimmick can slide in and out of the case, as you can see like this. So the way we're going to set it up is we're going to push the cards flush. We're going to close the tabs and then close the case. And just like this, you're now ready to perform. So the way we work with the angles, and I actually recommend you play with this in the mirror, okay? There's a few places you want to really be sure that you're covering to make sure that nobody sees this action going on. You don't want people seeing that, right? So your thumb is going to act as a cover for that. So the thumb is going to be covering that section, and don't think of it as covering, just think of it as holding the cards. If you think about covering, you're going to be tense. You just want to hold the cards. Just know that when you hold the cards, naturally your thumb will hide this. Likewise, you want to not have the cards facing this way because you're going to be exposing them to your spectators. You want to take this corner here, and if that corner, if you relax your hand and that corner kind of rest there, if you have your deck facing towards your audience's eyes, they will not be able to see that. All you have to do is go in front of the mirror and play with the angles. You want to notice where this line points to your audience. So if you can imagine a laser beam coming out from this corner of the deck that's right next to the thumb, that you direct it straight at the camera. If I direct that straight at the camera right there, you can see that you can't see any of that. So once you have your angles ready and you know how you need to hold the cards in a very relaxed way, you can start performing stacked. So by holding the cards here, you can also give the illusion that you are squaring or just holding the cards. And now this makes it seem like it's that size rather than this big size. So just by holding the deck here as you're talking or as you're just waiting to do the trick, it will give the illusion that the deck is this size. We will open the cards. Now, when you open the cards, you want to make sure that you keep your hand steady. You don't want to open it and move the hand because you might flash your gimmick. So just make sure that you are as steady as you possibly can when you open that flap. You're going to grip your gimmick underneath and on top, and you're going to start off by sliding the card case back. So it looks like I'm pulling the deck forward, but I'm really sliding the deck back a little bit like this so that I can get a better grip on the deck and then I can pull out, okay? Now, the way you pull out the cards is important because you don't want to flash this section, okay? So you want to make sure you don't flash this here, and you do that by revolving the deck around that pivot point. So if you consider this your pivot point, as long as your hand rotates around that pivot point, you will never flash, okay? So as long as you just rotate, you don't let go and grab, the hand just rotates around that pivot point, and that's going to hide everything. So as long as you rotate as you pull, and notice I did that by mistake there. I pulled more than I should have. So if you pull more than you should have, they'll see this. So you also want to be aware of how hard you're pulling so that you don't accidentally pull more than you should. One simple way to combat this being exposed is to pull the cards and having your hand facing their eyes. So if you imagine this pointing to their eye level, you can pull the cards as much as you want. They will never see it because the hand is covering, okay? So as you rotate, if your hand is also covering, it doesn't matter if you pull out just a little bit more, just push it in and it'll be hidden from view. So now that you are in this grip, just like this, you can go into flicking the cards. Now the way you flick the cards is important because if you do it very lightly, as you can see, we're getting flashes of bills because I'm not adding any pressure to the cards. If I add pressure to the cards, and by adding pressure, all I mean is I'm pulling down with my thumb as I'm putting pressure with my index up. As you can see, that causes the cards not to spring up, right, but close down because I'm adding pressure. What that does is it keeps the bills and the cards as closely together as possible, right? So as you can see, I'm adding pressure in that bend and I'm having the cards flick like this. You could imagine that you're shuffling the cards very loudly and that will actually cause you to bend the cards strongly enough that the Svengali principle will stay locked in place and it won't split. Now, the way we're going to get to reveal the spectator's cards is actually really, really simple. You're going to flick through the cards and randomly, somewhere in the middle, you're going to stop for a brief millisecond, okay? All you need is a brief pause, very, very small, as you flick through. So right now, you're probably thinking of the King of Diamonds. It's very, very simple to do. All I'm doing is flicking through slightly. Well, it just so happens that I stopped there again, but you're going to get a different card pretty much every single time. So as we flick, you stop for a millisecond and you continue going. What you see is going to be the same thing that they see. So as you flick through, you probably saw the King of Diamonds one more time because that's what I saw. So you flick through, whatever I see, that's what I'm going to say. So right now you probably saw the Five of Hearts, right? It's just as simple as that. As you go through, you're looking. You're going to randomly stop somewhere for a brief millisecond, and you're going to just remember the card that you saw because whatever you see will be the same thing they see. Let's run through a little example so you can see how we would go about doing this part of the routine. Okay, so we're gonna flick through, we'll stop. Right now, I saw 2 cards. So I saw the 5 of hearts and the 7 of spades. Super simple to deal with this. All you have to do is tell them, did you see a card? They will most likely say yes. Tell them, oh, it was a red card, wasn't it? Now, it doesn't matter what they say. If they say yes, good, you know it's the 5 of hearts. If they say no, you know it's the 7 of spades. Regardless of the case, let's say that they say no, you know it's the 7 of spades. Now you say, okay, so you're thinking of the 7 of spades, and they say no. It's completely okay as well, because you're gonna say, there's actually no way you could have been thinking of that or any other card because I had no cards in the first place. And that's how we're gonna do our change, okay? So one more time, you can just think of this reveal of a playing card as a little bonus effect, right? That it's gonna hit pretty much every single time. Just know that if it doesn't hit, is 100% okay, because in your presentation, you are saying that it doesn't really, that there's no way they could have been thinking of that card because you had no cards to begin with. And I'm just putting in carefully, there it is, just like that. Now, if you're having problems, like I was having problems putting the gimmick inside, this is a brand new fresh pack, but what I like to do is when I do the trick or the routine with the card case, I actually like to take 1 or 2 of the bills out. And what that does is it lets the gimmick slide in and out much easier. There's not that much resistance. Like I said in the beginning, you sometimes pull it more than you should, and that's because it's under a lot of tension and you have to put a lot of force. But by just taking 1 or 2 of your bills, it's much smoother, and it's a lot easier to do the moves. So you can do that if you want. Also, then that means you have 2 extra ones in case something happens to your other bills. But let's take a look at that change from the card case onto the table. Okay, so after we have flicked through, and they've seen their card, they're thinking of a card, we're going to do the change on the table. It's incredibly easy to do. There's pretty much no move whatsoever. You want to do this as naturally as you possibly can. Remember, you're in this position. Your dominant hand will be palm down. You flick through. Now, you're going to relax your body, and that's going to cause the cards to just become parallel, right? So when they become parallel, now you can take them from here. There's no way you can flash now, especially if you now turn your body. So you're here. If you start turning your body as this turns, you're going to start spreading the cards on the table. Now, it's important to know that you might flash this red part. So if I have this here and I just take it out, you'll see this. You'll see the back design, and you do not want that. So you want to start moving your body to hide that back design, and then you turn the deck as you spread it, and you just set the card case down. Now, the way also you set the card case, it's important, because if we set it facing the audience, they might be able to see inside, and they might see that it's actually open. So the best way and the best angle to place this is at a 45-degree angle right on your side. I hold the deck in my in my right hand, but if you hold the cards in your left hand, then it's just gonna be on your left side like that, okay? So I have it here, it's at a 45-degree angle, and the reason it's at a 45-degree angle is so that they can somewhat see inside. They will only see white, they won't see any opening, and you're also going to grab this case in a little bit, and it's in the perfect position for you to grab it. So that's where the case goes. You spread the cards like this. The situation is we have our gimmick bill right underneath. I will just lift everything up so you can see. We have our gimmick bill spread on the table. It'll be on your side, on the same side that you have your card case. So if you spread this way, it'll be here. If you spread the other way, it'll be on the other side. What you have to know is that when you pick up the cards, you're going to, the bills, when you pick up the bills, and I will show you a back view after, you're going to lift them up like this, and that's going to cause the flap to automatically close as you respread it. So let's take a look at that from behind. We're here, we took out the cards, we spread the cards, the bills. Now it looks like this. So we're here, we're going to pick up the spread. Now it's good to keep a wide spread, and you'll see why in a second. You're going to pick up from the parts of the bills that are away from you, and the reason you're doing that is because the flap is closest to you. So if you grab it closest to you, it won't close. So you have to grab the bills with the part that's away from you, or the Svengali part of the gimmick. As you lift it up, you can see that it automatically starts folding down. Your other hand comes over to spread the cards, and it just naturally folds that down. It's not a move. I'm not coming here, closing it, and then grabbing it. The action of grabbing is closing the bill, okay? So the action of grabbing closes the bill as you respread. Let's take a look at this as slowly as humanly possible. So our situation check, we have our spread. Our gimmick is right here on the bottom part, just like that. I'm going to grab the bills on the top part away from me because the gimmick is closest to me. I'm gonna not square them up that much because I want all the cover I can get to hide this. Now, I'm not closing it. All I'm doing is grabbing the stack to spread them. And because I'm grabbing the stack to spread them, it naturally closes the gimmick. So you should never think I'm closing the gimmick. You should just think I'm respreading the bills. And that will give the illusion that it's all bills, there's no movements going on, and it's as natural as humanly possible. Our situation now is we have shown the bills on both sides, and in that action, we have also closed the bills to the point where now they can be completely shown in all sides. Completely everything is 100%, you can show it. Now, if you want to put your gimmick away or you want to make it seem like there's no way it could have came from the box, you still have your box right next to you. The way you pick up the box is with your thumb on the side closest to you, and that's going to make the box come into your hand this way. The reason you want to do that is because you need this opening. This opening, you want that opening to be on the inside of your hand. And you will see why we're going to do that in a second. Because if we try to put this in and you look inside, you might be able to see some blackness, or you might be able to see through the box. You're not supposed to be able to do that. We're in a studio, but maybe if you're doing this out and there's a lot of sunlight, a lot of light is going to be going into that card case, and they will see that is not a normal card case. So all you have to do after you pick it up, just take your pinky and push that flap inside of the card case. So with your pinky, you just want to push it just a little bit inside. It doesn't have to go all the way. And that's going to close out all of the light that might be either coming in or coming out of the case, making it seem like it's a normal card case. So you do not bring attention to this. You just pick up the card case, put your bills back inside, and you won't be able to, right? You do this. This makes it seem like, wow, you're really trying to push that in and it's not going. You can also take the part with the half moon and face that towards your audience, and then just slap the bottom of the deck so that it seems like you're trying to push the bills inside. Now, when you do this, you want to make sure you apply pressure with your thumb, because if you don't, you might get some of the bills to open up and show up like this, okay? So if you're gonna do that, just make sure you apply a little pressure on the deck like this, on the front and the back of the case, and just by tapping, you're demonstrating that the bills can't go any further, and you're also making sure that none of the bills accidentally come out. So once you have done that, you can do a quick little turnaround, show the bills, they don't fit, and you can put them away because obviously you don't want to hand out your fat stack of cash to your spectators. One thing to keep in mind when you're using this case is sometimes, depending on how old or how new your card case is, this flap might stay open a little bit more than you would probably want it to. Just be aware of how much your case opens so that when you put it down, it doesn't accidentally open up and stay open like this. If your case does do this, it just means it's a very new case. So you want to work in this little flap a little bit by just bending it inside, just like this. You just create a little bend. That way, now when you put it down on the case, the flap is going to be inside of the case rather than pushing the case open and big like this. So that's one little thing to keep in mind if you're going to be setting that card case on the table. Now let's take a look at how to do this trick with the card case but using no table. Let me show you this here, some cards. Now if I flick through them like this and have you think of one, so go ahead, just think of one. You got one? Good. Now, you weren't thinking of the 8 of clubs, were you? Oh, that's interesting because I actually have no cards here to begin with. In fact, all I have is just money all the way around, just like this. And now I can go buy literally anything I want. So let's take a look at how to do this version with no table. It's super simple. You've probably already figured it out. It's the same exact thing. Instead of putting the card case on the table, you're just flipping the gimmick around the card case, giving the illusion that it's transforming into the big stack of bills. So you're gonna put your money just like you have with the 5 of clubs facing the half moon. We'll have it go flush with that case. We'll close the case. And now you can start as you would normally start with the cards here. You open up the case, you pull the cards out as you revolve around. You start having them think of any one of those cards. When they do, you just leave the deck here. You talk about whatever card it is that they're thinking of. You tell them there's no way they could have been thinking of that card because you have no cards to begin with. And when you do that and you say that, you're just going to take the stack and flip it over on itself. When you do that, you want to make sure that you are not flashing the backside of that gimmick there. And the way you can accomplish that, the way you can make sure that you hide that, is by bringing this edge of the deck one more time, meeting their eye line. So if you can imagine this laser coming up from this edge, if it hits their forehead, if it hits their eye line, they will not be able to see this, okay? So as you take the cards out, you slightly tilt up, and you're doing that so we hide this, and you flip it over on top of the case. Now you start spreading, okay? And because it's uncomfortable, you put the box away, right? So you start spreading, oh, it's a little bit uncomfortable. You put the box away and look at our situation. We have our opening facing the audience like this. Now, you don't want to hold it in this way because they will flash. So you can have it facing down a little bit. If you don't have it facing down and you want to have it like this, just make sure you apply pressure on that flap with your fingers, and that's going to keep it closed and it's not going to flap down. When you're ready to do the move, and I will show you what the move looks like, right? We start spreading, it becomes uncomfortable, so we put the box away. As we come forward one more time, remember, look, I'm putting pressure with my finger here. As the hand comes over, we're gonna open that mouth, thumb goes inside. As it flips over, let me see if I can show you here. Thumb goes inside that mouth as it flips over the gimmick. and you can show the bills on both sides now. So that's how you can perform stacked with no table whatsoever. So here's a couple additional ideas that you can do with your stacked gimmick. Let's say you actually want to use this trick right before paying or right before you use your money. So if you notice, let's say if you have American money, right, you will see that the actual bill is slightly larger than your gimmick. So all you have to do if you want to do this is trim your bill slightly so that it's the same size as your gimmicks. So you're just going to take an X-Acto knife and trim it off so that your bill is the same size as your gimmick. Once you've done that, you can take as many bills as you like. It just depends what you're going to buy. And you're going to place that on the bottom of your stack. Okay? Now you take so you have your top gimmick, which is the flap card. Then you have the rest of your stack. And then you have your actual bills right on the bottom. Everything starts out exactly the same. We're going to riffle through. And as we do, we're going to do the same move, but now we actually have money, right? We want to also be aware that you might show a little bit of that bill down there. So if you want to pull it slightly down so it doesn't show, you can do that as well. Now, as we flick through, boom, we get our change. Everything works exactly the same. You still spread. You still do your move where you tap and you can show the back. You can show everything, but now when it comes time to pay, you can actually use money, right? So one little thing that you could do in order to get into this is you have this hidden behind your back as you're maybe searching for your wallet and you're about to pay, and you can say, oh, do you guys accept cards? They'll say yes. Most places accept cards. When you pull it out, now it's a joke. They see that you have playing cards. You say, oh, what about these? Do you accept any of these? They'll say, no. What about cash? Poof. And now the whole deck turns into cash. You show both sides, everything. Ooh, look at all that money. But now you can actually pay. So all the heat goes away from your gimmicks to the money because you're going to use them to pay something, and you pocket your money. So that's one little thing, one little extra thing that you can do with your stack gimmick in case you want to actually do the change and then use your money, okay? But let's say you want to now do card tricks and you're using your cards and you're doing tricks, but then you want to end on this trick. So how could you do that? If you're using regular cards, how can we now go into this regular trick? It's super, super, super simple. If you have your gimmick already set up in its case, right? So we have the gimmick already set up in its case. Now, it all depends where you're performing. If you're performing seated at a table, then you can have this next to you. You can have this on your lap. You can have this anywhere where you normally keep your props. So this would be set up somewhere that you have very easy access to. If you're performing outdoors or you're performing out on the streets, then you can just have this in your back pocket, set up to go just like this. Of course, if you're going to be performing tricks with cards, you will need your regular deck of cards or whichever deck of cards you want, and you're going to want to use the same card case. So you want to get a matching card case. That way, when you finish performing with your cards, you put those cards away. It's almost like you're done doing your magic. The cards go back. And instead of pulling them back out, you're really going to pull your setup, your gimmick. You're going to pull that out. Now, the way you get away with this, right, because how can I get away from putting one deck away and switching one deck for another for a gimmick? It's really simple. You want to make sure that you do this when they're reacting to your previous trick. If you do this switch when they're reacting to the previous trick, nobody will know that you have switched decks. Now, once you have your deck switched out and you're here, you wait until everybody stops reacting. Everybody settles down, and then you bring attention back. Oh, let me show you one more thing. Actually, let me do this thing, and then you go into whatever presentation you have for your stack gimmick. But that's a very simple way to get into your stacked routine from a regular deck of cards. Here's one more idea, just in case you really want to bulletproof this trick. Your flap card, right, is the one that they're going to see the most. So one thing you can do is take that bill, the one that opens up and it has the magnet, and you can take any other bill. It doesn't have to be 100. You could take a 20, you could take a 1, a 5, any bill you feel comfortable with, and you're going to trim that bill just like we did before. You're going to trim that bill to be the exact size of not the card, right, but the actual bill, because you can see that the bill part, the flap part, is actually slightly smaller, as you can see right there, is slightly shorter than the back part. So just be aware that the top part of your bill will be shorter than your back side. So you take one of your bill, whichever denomination you want, you cut it to this size, and now you can glue that bill on top of your gimmick. So when you hold your gimmick in your hand, the top bill will technically be a real bill. It goes without saying that if you want to take this idea even further, you can also do the same thing to the back of your gimmick and then to every single bill or gimmick that you have here, every single piece of your gimmick. You can also apply that. You just want to be aware that, just know that every gimmick will be having two bills, so it might be a little bit expensive, but also it will make it thicker. So you might have to take some parts of your gimmick out so that you can still use your card case in case you want to do that. Another fun idea that you might really enjoy is after you do the change from the cards to the bills, you can then, the most logical thing that would happen if you have money in your hands, it must mean that it came from your wallet. So maybe that's where the cards went. So then you reach in your wallet and you open it up and you find that your deck is inside of your wallet. Now, this is obviously super, super simple to do because you're not doing anything. All you have to do is put a duplicate or, just any deck that you want to use in your wallet, place that in your pocket, and then right after you perform your trick, you call attention now back to the deck by taking out your wallet and producing it from the wallet. So that's also another way to get out of your trick, out of the stacked trick, and into just performing with a regular deck of cards. Now, you are bringing in a deck of cards from somewhere they didn't know it existed, right? That means this deck that comes out of your wallet could be any deck at all that you want. What I mean by that is you can have a memorized stacked deck, or you could have another special deck that you want to do tricks with. Could be a stripper deck, could be a marked deck. It could be absolutely anything that you want to come out of your wallet. It could be exactly that. Not only can you do that great transposition of the deck going into your wallet, but you can also use it as a very nice little deck switch. So there you go. There's some additional ideas for you that you can use with stacked. Let's go into some troubleshootings and some extra tips when performing stacked. Let's talk about what happens if you, for some reason, drop your gimmick, right? Because as we know, the gimmick has to be in a very specific orientation in order for the trick to work. So let's imagine you dropped everything, everything's going in all directions, and you don't know how to put it back together. Very, very simple. If we take a closer look at the gimmick, you will notice, number one, that you have a single piece that has a flap. So you only get one of these, and that's the top part of your gimmick. Okay, so once you find that, it's really easy because it has a magnet and it opens up. It's also 100 on one side and 100 on the other side, okay? So once you find that, you know that that's your top gimmick. And we'll put that aside. Now, all the other gimmicks are exactly the same. So except that some of them are 50s, 100s, 1s, 5s, 10s. That's the difference. If you notice, the top part of your gimmick has a paper and it has a matte finish. So it looks very matte and not shiny at all. If we look at the other side, now that's a little bit glossy, and it's also the underside of the bill. So that's another way to know. So you just want to take all of your bills and place them all facing up. So as long as all your bills are facing up, and if the heads are also pointing in the same direction, your gimmick will be perfect. Now, if for some reason you place all of your gimmicks with the head facing the right way and you still do not get, or you get one or two bills when you flick through here, there's a few things that might be happening. So you want to take another look at your gimmicks and notice that the top of the gimmick there has a little step. You can see that it has this paper, that's the bill, and then it has a step, and it doesn't really fall flush on one side only, and technically it'll be the right side of your bills, okay? The other side, it's flush. You can still lift it up, but you don't see a card, you see money, right? So what you want to do is make sure that when you lift up, you see that step and you have a card. So as long as you have a step and you see a card, and you just do that with every single bill, you have all of your bills facing in the right direction. Once you have that, take your top bill, place it right on top, just like the others, and you'll be set to perform stacked. If you get a bunch of bills when you're going through the cards like this, let's say you're spreading through and you see bills like you just saw, the reason this is happening is because you do not have a squared gimmick. So anytime you perform this trick, you want to make sure that the gimmick is squared. When the gimmick is squared, the Svengali principle will be able to work properly. If it's a mess, because of all the cards are jagged and they're not really perfectly square like they should be, you're getting some bills showing and some cards showing like this. Right? The second we put it square, every single card will be shown. Now, I know I've said this before, but we'll say it one more time. When you flick through the cards, you want to make sure that you're applying downward pressure and upwards pressure with your index finger. That's going to allow both parts of the gimmick, as you can see, to flip up together as a single piece. I will now do it without adding the pressure, and you will see the difference. So now if I add no pressure, if I add no pressure, you can see that it separates as right there just a little bit. So why chance flashing when by just adding a little bit of pressure, you're going to make sure that it looks absolutely perfect. As we mentioned earlier, right, you're going to have this opening here. And if this becomes too tight for you to pull it out, you can take out maybe one or two of your gimmicks. So that's going to make this a little bit smoother. Likewise, if you find it still that it's very, very hard for you to move, another thing that might be happening is you might have not cut enough of your card case here. So instead of it being opening all the way that much, really it's being close like this, and that's making it really hard for you to pull the cards out of the box. So all you have to do is very slowly, carefully, and make sure you're over the age of 18. If you're using a knife, cut just a little bit more there, just a little bit more here, and that's going to give you a bigger opening. Also remember, you don't want to keep it like this and then go perform like this because you have an opening. So when you put it down, it's going to be raised up like that, and we don't want that. So after you do your cut, just make sure you work your box back down so that we don't get any flash of the outside light or the inside light actually coming out. So that's one way to fix that issue if your cards are getting too stuck in the card case. Angles are very important in this trick, so I will now walk through where you might encounter a few issues when it comes to angles, okay? So if you're just holding the cards and you're performing here, you might flash on the back, right? So you might flash here, And you might also accidentally flash the underside as you're showing the bills before you want to reveal the bottom, okay? So just make sure when you're flicking through. Now, I haven't mentioned this before, but the reason why I like to flick down like this is because this top bill, there's no pressure holding it down, right? So if I hold it down like this, there's no way you can see it. And then when I start moving up, there's also no way you can see it. But when you do this, you want to make sure you don't flash that underside. So you want to practice in the mirror and make sure that when you're bending this over, you're not accidentally showing this. So we're here. Now, here's a simple way to make sure you never show that. You just spread the cards with your fingers open, and the fingers will block any accidental flash that you might be getting. So just by opening your fingers like this, they might cover that underside. Just be aware that when you're flicking, you might flash the underside of the bill and you might flash this side of the bill. Now, when it comes to having the cards inside of the case, there are also a few moments in which you might flash. One of the ones that you will not notice that you're flashing, so pay attention here, is this little section right there, this little opening. When we were going through the routine, we mentioned make sure you have your thumb there because we want to cover it. Just be aware that you might flash there as you're pulling the cards out if you release the hand. So remember, all you got to do is rotate around that pivot point, and the pivot point is that cut. So exactly where that mouth open, that's your pivot point, that's where the hand turns around, and that's where you do the move. It's also important to mention that as you're doing that, you want to be aware that you might flash here, right? So we're keeping an eye here, we're keeping an eye here, which is why it's very important you do this in front of the mirror. As this comes out, you hide everything, okay? So just like that, and you would get into your position like that. Now, because we're here, we will go over what could happen here. Where could you flash here? And that's that little section on the half moon. If you accidentally pull it out too much, you'll see that. So just make sure it's right flush with the back of that card case. Also, by making sure it's flush with the back of the card case, you are ensuring that when you flick through, you're using the 7-galley principle perfectly. Regardless of whichever change you're going to do, whether you're going to put it on the table or you're just going to flip it on top of the deck, it's important that you don't flash that, right? You don't want to flash this. So it's super simple. If you're aware of it, all you have to do is either tilt up as you're doing the change, that way you don't get the flash, or as you're going to put it down, you just want to make sure that this part is away from the audience's view by the time you actually pull it out of the card case. And you can do that by shifting your weight, by just moving around so that that becomes not seen. So there you go. That's all the troubleshooting tips we have for you. Thank you again so much for purchasing Stacked. Go out there, start performing this, have fun, and we'll see you next time.